Welcome to Focus on Growth. I'm Tom Doorley of Sage Partners, and I'll be your host today. It's become increasingly obvious to us and to many of you that these are unusual times. We're entering a period of disruption. Lots of attacks coming from all sides in terms of technology, in terms of social media, in terms of political change. We've taken an idea that goes way back to probably the 1800s and a description of what it's like to be in battle. That was called the fog of war. And in the fog of war, things are difficult. Noise, energy, confusion, and of course, fog. So we've taken that idea and the imagery and we're applying it to where we are today. And we're calling it the fog of change. The change this time is disruptive. It's amazing. It's fast-paced. It's massive. It's across all elements of our life and our society. And because of that, we've decided to launch a series of episodes to first understand the nature of the fog of change, and then to discuss how it is we can deal with these elements, how we can navigate the fog of change. Let me be clear. This is something that is unprecedented and that we're dealing with kind of almost for the first time. Nonetheless, we can draw on our experiences from the past in somewhat similar situations, but a little different, and put together a story for how it is we can all together navigate the fog of change. So I'm going to lay the predicate today, why this is something that's really important and unusual. And then we're going to do a series of episodes where we talk about the leader's responsibility, where we talk about the individual's responsibility, where we talk about how we manage risk and yet pursue opportunity, which is incredibly important in subsequent episodes. We call those our deeper dives. So we're going to present our framework of how it is we deal with it. Then we go into the deeper dives, and then we'll come back and flesh out our framework. Let's think about the fog of change from three perspectives. First, from technology. AI is here. It's moving. It's changing. How does we do our work? How does we think? And it's disruptive. We think about quantum computing. Boy, it's happening fast. Computers are faster than ever, and that allows us to have AI and, of course, also synthetic biology, where we can manipulate pieces of our own personal value chain and create different things. So when we look at this, we say, we're not even sure how it's all going to play out. Talk about unintended consequences. It's disruptive. And if that wasn't enough, here comes political change. At the geopolitical level, we've gone from a period of what we might call global progressivism to, I don't know, local populism or something. We have China exploding on the scene, and at the same time, a diminished Russia creating all kinds of turmoil, all kinds of problems. Politically, it's a difficult time, and social media has finally scaled. And when it's scaled, what it means is a small number of fringe voices can have very disruptive impact. We need to deal with that. So how are we going to deal with that? We have to think about it in terms of three important priorities or three areas that we just have to come to grips with. One, this is massive change. It is truly spectacular. Two, it is fast, faster than it's ever been, and it's going to get faster. And three, it's going to be continuous. We're not going to be done with this. It's going to happen forever. Let me take that last piece and talk about, if that's the case, well, we have to build more resiliency, more adaptability into our organizations than ever before. So if we think about it, we had, not too long ago, a couple of decades, a global financial meltdown, and it was tough. Nonetheless, in the midst of it, there was hope that we'd figure it out. After all, we did it. In the Great Depression, we'd do it again, and we did. And we've created more stable financial systems. Not perfect, but better. Point is, we came through a crisis. And then more recently, we had a once-in-a-century pandemic, and it hit us hard, and it was confusing. And yet somehow, in the midst of it, we felt, due to the course of perhaps Operation Warp Speed or perhaps mitigation efforts, some of which were better than others, or even herd immunity, that we'd come through with it, and we did. This time, we better plan on it being continual, it being something we're going to have to teach our organization to deal with, not just today, not just tomorrow, but an ongoing basis. So if that's the predicate, if that's the base case for why it is we call this the fog of change, now what do? Well, we have an idea, a proposal that's based on the work we've done and the work that people in our network have done, and we call that the Leaders Change Agenda. And in this slide, I talk about how it looks like. Now, this is a simple flow chart, and I'm going to go in more depth in subsequent episodes. But today, I want to introduce the idea that says, you know what? We have a proposal that's going to be able to help us. At the front end, It's figuring out what the change agenda is, because we're trying to distill all the things we can do into perhaps 5 principles, 5 priorities, 5 things that we worry about. So when something else comes along, we say, no, we're not worrying about that today. But admittedly, since we don't know exactly how all these forces are going to combine, all these forces are going to mix, we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to be thinking about and understanding and pursuing what could happen and what could changes. And if those changes hit us, then we'll make changes to our 5 priorities. But it's important that organizations stay focused on these things that we do. And this is not just a C-level message, not just a C-suite message. It cascades throughout the entire organization so that everybody is on board. Everybody understands what to do. Everybody knows the key priorities at every case. The first thing we do is we do a little readiness assessment. Change is hard. Nobody really wants to change. So we have to make sure that the predicate, this is a time of big change, is accepted by the organization. Secondly, we have to make sure that they're ready for change. So in this little assessment, this readiness assessment, takes a couple of weeks for a smaller organization, a month or more for larger organizations. We begin to understand where we sit, what's our starting point, and therefore we can roll out what it is we need to do. And then it rolls out over this whole first part. The first 3 hexagons are perhaps the strategy, the planning, the development of the roadmap perspectives. And then the back part is the resiliency piece, how this organization adjusts and goes on in the future. So that's a highlight. That's a peek under the rug, as it were, of our leader change agenda. As I say, we'll come back to that. But before we do that, we're going to go into a series of episodes where we dig deeper into each of the key elements that bring us to a way to understand how to navigate the fog of change. We'll start with leadership and a series of explorations around leadership at the enterprise organizational level, at the personal level, at the CEO level of a large organization, at the CEO level of a small organization, and down at the shop floor. Let me tell you a little bit about how that's going to unfold. I've already recorded the first episode at the enterprise level, the overall organizational level. It's with Cordell Bennington. Cordell is a former Marine fighter pilot, a COO and CEO, and he works with a group called Echelon Front, which is world-class in terms of how it is leaders deal with the issues of challenge and of change. And he's going to talk about it from that overall perspective. And one thing he's going to tell us is, at a time of massive change, what the natural reaction is to bring things together. It's command and control. It is to tighten up. That's absolutely wrong. We need to find a way to empower our organization for a lot of reasons, including a lot of the answers of what is going to need to do are going to be found out in the field. That's an important message from Cordell. And then Jennifer Barron, a Deloitte strategy consultant in the past, and now currently someone who has her own executive coaching business. Jennifer is going to talk about what it's like for us at a personal level. She has some great ideas, one of which is the idea that we shouldn't consider ourselves in all of this as a victim. We need to own our happiness. I love that line. Bill Mitchell, who is a Sage partner and CEO at one time of Aero Electronics, a Fortune 100 company, and just recently came off the board of Humana, is going to talk about what the leaders change agenda looks like from the CEO perspective of a large corporation. And then my Sage partner, Don Plumley, who is in charge of our venture practice, our young company practice, is going to talk about the same thing, but this time from a small company or a young company perspective. The 5th episode is going to talk about what it looks like from the shop floor. And I've invited Rockwell Automation, a group of folks who have a great application of digital transformation at the machine level, at the shop floor level. And they're going to talk about how it is it works at that level. And so what we'll be doing is how it is we cascade these ideas from senior level, C-suite, all the way down to the fact that each of us has our own responsibility. It's important that we all understand what to do. But we're not just going to talk about from a leadership perspective. We're going to look at things from the opportunity and the risk perspective. Listen, one of the issues that is hard is that in times of change or crisis, we have 2 things we have to do. We have to manage the base, keep the trains running on time, keep that business that got us started in place. We simply also, in times of confusion and fog, we have to find ways to take risk-oriented or opportunity-oriented risks, make opportunity-oriented risks, and reach out and find those things. And you might argue that these are 2 polar opposites. Conditioning, protecting, making sure the base works, sure. But still taking those risks, that's important. So we're going to explore how opportunity works, how we're going to do it, the kinds of things that are going to be required in terms of new business models and those sorts of things. Now that we have this predicate, we understand the importance, the impact of the fog of change, and why it is we need to deal with it in a substantive way. And also, the second thing I've tried to do for us all is to say that here's some things we're going to be talking about in terms of our deeper dives of how to navigate that fog of change. It's important. Here's what it is we're going to do. In closing, let me add a personal note. Obviously, as Sage partners, we're doing this to reach out to clients and potential clients. After all, we want to generate a little revenue. We want to be a group that pays our light bill. But equally important at this stage in our careers, for myself, my partners, and our network, we have things we want to say to the world. So if you don't choose to have us help you through these, take these ideas and use them in your own organization, in your own enterprise, to make this a better world going forward. We call that a play it forward objective. And that's equally important to the idea of paying the light bill. So thank you for listening. I look forward to our next conversation. Until then, take care and be well.